and gentlemen, welcome back to day 3 of the Razer King of the Beta tournament. Thank you so much once again to Razer for sponsoring this event. They're coming out with a great new line of products specifically for Starcraft 2. You should definitely check out their Spectre mouse in particular, which I got the chance to play with when I was at E3, and it feels absolutely amazing, fits in your hand just right, and again, integrates with the Starcraft 2 software, so you can do all sorts of fancy stuff with that. So we do have Whitera versus DIMAGA, the second series of today, coming up. Both players are in kind of weird spots. Whitera is 1-0 and really wants to win this series if he wants to be able to hope to qualify. So there's a lot riding on line for him, and DIMAGA 0-1 in his series really needs to win this if he wants to even stay alive. So both players really counting on a lot here in day 3 to make sure that they can get their spots guaranteed in the Final Four that will be broadcast live from Harvey Mudd College in Los Angeles, California on July 26th. Now, Whitera, the Protoss superhero from Ukraine, demonstrating some amazing aggression against QXC, and always has a lot of creativity in his play, not afraid to experiment. Same way with Whitera, another very strong Zerg player who, like Whitera, mass games. Both these players play tons and tons and tons of games and do all sorts of crazy stuff. DIMAGA has done everything from crazy early game Ultralisk rushing antics to very long-term plays that involve lots of expanding. He's one of the first Zerg players to have some real successes against Terrans on Kulas Ravine, which many Zerg players struggle on greatly. So we'll be going into Game 1 right about now. So we will have a best of 3 between them. First map will be on Lost Temple coming up right now. Huck versus Idra. Huck wasn't able to defeat Idra, did go 1-2 once again, so Huck is currently 0-2 in his group, and Idra is 1-1, losing to Tester in the early days of the Razer King of the Beta tournament. So here we are going directly into Game 1 of DIMAGA against Whitera. DIMAGA spawning in the north position as the red Zerg pieces, sending his Overlord directly to the right. And on the left, we have Whitera as the blue Protoss. So this map, Lost Temple, typical RTS map, has your natural expansion right here, one small choke, and of course the large ridge overlooking your expansion for some cute tactics that can happen early on. And as usual, looks like Whitera is already going to be sending a probe towards the expansion to build a pylon. This is the typical opening that players do. Nazgul popularized this style on Blistering Sands, going for the fast one gateway build, so that way he could harass very quickly with Zealots. And it looks like Whitera might be going for a 10 gate as well. Some players have backed it off to go for an 11 or 12 gate. Yep, it looks like Whitera is doing exactly that. In the meantime, DIMAGA is continuing to make drones. There's really 3 openings that are equally valid on this map, that are actually evenly done on this map, which is the 14 hatchet expansion because the distances are quite far apart, the usual 14 pool, and then followed by the expansion just to be a little bit safer and get the queen out a little bit faster, and of course pool gas. Weirdly enough, the pool gas opening still very popular because, again, this sort of 2-gating antics or 1-gating antics is so popular on this map. So there goes the one spawning pool, and oh, DIMAGA, of course, throwing down the extractor. Would not be surprised at all to see him do this regularly in his series because he just loves very aggressive openings just as much as he loves the long late game economic openings. So Whitera, building a second gateway. Wow, that's a late second gateway. That first gateway is almost completely done. So that does mean that that's going to put a little bit of a dent into the follow-up harass, but he will have more probes so he can get that expansion down faster. There's the 15 pylon to ensure that he has enough food to get his Zealots out on time. And looks like DIMAGA continuing to make drones. Pool's almost done, so really no larva has been saved up to do any sort of aggression early on. Now, DIMAGA does want to build a decent number of probes, or excuse me, a decent number of drones so he can start being aggressive right off the bat or expand very quickly. There's no real need to get 6 Zerglings immediately if you're one base gassing, because there's no risk of dying at this expansion. Really, you're going to be expanding so much far later that, you know, it's reasonable. So DIMAGA should be pulling these guys off now that he has gas, unless he's going for some sort of early roach push. Whitera trying to sneak around, trying to see exactly what his opponent is doing, but look at DIMAGA doing a beautiful job keeping that probe out of the loop, keeping these Zerglings all the way skirted back along the creep, so that way he has the speed boost advantage. Whitera also pulling back with these Zealots. One Zealot, very, very weak, very vulnerable, but once you get 2 or even 3 Zealots, you're a lot stronger. And here comes Whitera with the huge push. Still no gas, still no expansion, just continuing to, oh, look, a Forge gearing up to expand, and DIMAGA, wow, still getting gas, but absolutely nothing has been made in his main. He has not begun to tech to a layer, no tech towards Roach Warrens at all. DIMAGA's in a seriously dangerous situation. Now, here's the key period for a Protoss player who's 2-gating. It's right when he gets 5 Zealots up, because notice that right when Zealots 4 and 5 arrive, that's when these 4 larvae pop off from the first vomit that the Queen did. So that's when that huge boost of Zerglings pop out, and that's when these Zealots really need to start being very careful. So Whiterot can poke up a little bit, but then he'll have to immediately back off. And oh my goodness, DIMAGA, no imposter here, loving the fast Baneling bust openings. He was a fan of that in the early days against Terran before Baneling busts were ever even really known. He was probably the first player to popularize it in competitive play in the early days of the Zotac Cup. So Whiterot doing the smart thing, pulling his Zealots back and just blocking the ramp with only the ones that he needs to. This will help make him a little bit more Baneling proof, as it is always embarrassing and awkward when 7 of your Zealots get roasted by a handful of Banelings just because you were looking somewhere else. Now this is so smart by Whiterot to get this cannon very fast. It's so tempting to just rely on Zealots and then make a Nexus and skip the Forge altogether. In fact, go for the Cybernetics core before the Forge, because you think you're going to be fine against Zerglings with this many Zealots, and you're going to be fine against Roaches if you can get the Stalkers fast enough, but against Banelings, that's the one huge threat. Idra, a big fan of Baneling busts when he gets trapped like this, and it looks like DIMAGA doing the exact same thing himself. Here come the 5 Banelings, just enough to take out these Zealots. DIMAGA going to be able to annihilate those immediately, and these 4 Zealots are completely out in the open, getting surrounded without any resistance, really not even killing off that many Zerglings at all. So here comes DIMAGA with a huge number of speed Zerglings. Whiterot walling himself off immediately, but this pylon is the big vulnerable spot in this wall off. It can get taken down with Banelings, and the rest of these Zerglings can wrap around. DIMAGA needs to start making drones if he wants to have any hope to do some sort of follow-through. This is so dangerous to do this huge Baneling bust. He completely sacrifices his late-game economy in the hopes to win right here, right now, but it looks like Whiterot is well defended. He has tons of buildings here. Time for DIMAGA to stop making all the Zerglings and Banelings. Maybe he can go for a bust and pick off this north pylon, but this is a lot of cannons. Look at Whiterot just walling himself up immediately. Some players might think that this is a little bit goofy for Whiterot. This might look a little bit like US West in 1998, building as many cannons as you can at the front before you do anything else at all. But in reality, this is exactly what Whiterot needs to do. Going to the unit counting station, we can see that DIMAGA has 14 drones and 25 probes for Whiterot. So Whiterot swinging way ahead in the economy. No Expo coming up at all for DIMAGA. Completely blank there at the natural expansion. So that means that as long as Whiterot just stays alive thanks to these 5 cannons, he's going to be in good shape. And DIMAGA still making Banelings on 1 gas. They're going to be a little bit slow to pile up, but that is a very, very scary amount of Banelings. I might even just try to go ahead and bust these 2 gateways and then have a few more to knock down the cannons. More gas geysers going down for Whiterot. He needs those sentries out immediately, but why is he making Zealots? Oh, that's so dangerous. If you can get the sentries, you can force field to defend against these Banelings. This is such a dangerous spot for Whiterot. Look at the number of Banelings DIMAGA has. A full 16 Banelings, and are more coming? Yes, more Zerglings are coming. Here comes a huge bust. He is able to take out one of the Banelings before it hits there, and there go the 2 gateways. So many Zerglings here for DIMAGA, and Whiterot can't even get his probes up in the front to defend. These 2 Banelings are in the back if Whiterot did target fire those. Oh, a little hole has been found at the south side. Looks like DIMAGA is just going to run around. Too many cannons there for Whiterot, but this is a horrible situation for Whiterot, getting his main vulnerabilized like that. So now DIMAGA surrounding this 1 Zealot, no micro going on there, is managing to take out some probes. Now this is DIMAGA's chance to sweep in, kill off some probes, get an advantage, and expand. But it looks like DIMAGA still making Zerglings, just wants to go for the kill right away, to go for the jugular. No more Banelings being produced, and here's a little bit of a vulnerability, but a Stargate out for Void Rays. No gateway anywhere at all in any of DIMAGA's expansions. He's just going to try to hope to stay alive with the Void Ray, but the Void Rays kill Zerglings so slowly. It's just not going to work very well at all. But here comes a ton of Banelings. Looks like DIMAGA trying to go for the huge follow-up in the back, but oh my god, taking out all of these probes and now going for, ouch! getting a huge blast on that probe count, but it's hard to take advantage of that economic lead that he will get because DIMAGA is low on drones himself. Looks like DIMAGA is trying to swing in again with a huge number of Zerglings. An impressive number managed to make it back there, and now they are whacking away at the cannon in the main, targeting a few probes along the way. And DIMAGA now has a critical number of Zerglings, which means that probes can no longer defend. How long until that Void Ray pops out? It is out, but the Void Rays are slow, and it is going to be tough to pick off any Zerglings quickly enough, considering that the Zerglings have 35 life, not quite enough to charge up. Now, DIMAGA really needed to have started to make drones in this situation, but it looks like he's still making Zerglings, also favoring to get a few queens up there to defend against these Void Rays. DIMAGA is in a horrible situation. He's basically committed himself to banelinging all the rest of the game. There's no hope for him to start expanding, start getting up more queens or more defenses, because really these Void Rays are going to be able to put way too much pressure if DIMAGA lets up at any point at all. So it looks like this one Void Ray is playing pool with the Zerglings, just sort of knocking them back one at a time.